Hi, everyone, and welcome to AB Conversations, where we will help you CFP your way out of it. A podcast where you get into the minds of a couple certified financial planners on how we think and feel about everyday financial planning questions and what should really matter most to you. A healthier financial life starts now. All right, welcome everybody. AB Conversations, joined by special guest today, Matt Strunk. Matt, I'll introduce you as Entrepreneur. I know you founded, led digital marketing agency, but let's be real. You've bought, you've sold, you've bought, you've invested. You've pretty much worn every hat, I guess we could say, that an entrepreneur can wear. You're going to be a wealth of knowledge today, now helping other entrepreneurs as a coach, strategic partner and things, just all around thoughtful guy. So super glad that you agreed to come on today, Matt. Thanks for giving some time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So I'll set the stage a little bit, really just pull back the curtain. You and I were having a conversation just a couple weeks ago, how we, in different ways, but maybe also in similar ways, try to help people through big life transitions, specifically your perspective selling business. Again, it's going to apply in many different ways. We can talk about life, we can talk about business, we can talk about money, but how often fear just shows up, usually in a big way during those times. So let's talk about it today. You know, how that can push us in good directions, sometimes bad, but the role that it plays, and maybe the best place to start, if you're willing. I'll throw you the softball here. Tell us your story. You know, what led you and I jumping onto this conversation today?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Man, where's the start? I guess to really start, you probably have to start back when I was like 18 years old and started my first company, which was an e-commerce business. And all I knew at the time was I didn't want to work somewhere. So I was like, I'm going to just start a business. And man, I had no clue what I was doing, but I started e-commerce business. And, you know, I still remember feeling like, wow, this is it, man. Like it was that easy. Like it's a drop shipping business. People are going to buy these products. It's going to automatically ship out and I'm going to be set for life. And yeah, it didn't work that way because then I realized you need to do marketing to get people to go to your business. So then I started learning about that and, you know, fast forward a while and I started a digital marketing company back in 2015, which is, I think, where a lot of this really started. And I was so driven for that to not be a failure. And I remember, you know, at that stage in my life, I had just gotten out of the military or transitioning out. You know, I was, I think, dating my now wife. I was in great shape. Like I was just in a good place. And I was like, I'm going to put everything into this business. And we scaled quickly over the next several years. You know, we were doing 7 figures in our second full year, I think. And we just grinded like you see on the internet, you know, 15-hour days, all that kind of jazz. I ended up starting a second company out of that because like, hey, why the hell not? Yeah. And then it kind of all came to a head, I'd say, right after COVID, maybe. And, you know, I was at a place where I did all of this. I would have told you to get freedom. I wanted freedom of time and all these things.
Sure, right?
But I'd probably tell you I built a prison instead, you know, like in an ironic way, I built like this big business
Strong word
prison.
there, Matt,
Yeah. And I was just burned out. I don't think I knew at the time that I was burned out, but it was just, this isn't it anymore, you know? But yeah, fortunately, I ended up selling those companies. And then, like you had said, I've bought a company since then. I've started a couple other companies. And throughout all of that, eventually I had to just stop and like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just kind of flailing around at this point, and I never really stopped to reassess, why am I doing this? You know?
Yeah, I think it takes a special person to take those leaps of faith at the beginning of the process anyway. But I talk to you, I follow you. I've heard you say like at some point you like looked in the mirror and you're like, who is this guy? Like, what was it all for? So I'm kind of curious as we talk about fear of maybe not having the identity is what you got to, but like, how have you really like leaned into, or maybe as you were scaling things, how were you leaning into the fear in a good way that was clearly leading you to the place you are today where, you know, by maybe societal's like definition of these things, you've had success, like you've done great things, but maybe you're not feeling as fulfilled. So let's start with the good. How did fear at least like get you to that spot?
Yeah, I think this concept of fear as fuel, I think is a really real concept because when I look back and I reevaluate everything, I was very much driven from a place of fear, you know? And it could be something like fear of failing in the business, but also like even more personal than that, like a fear of not being enough or a fear of, you know, proving people that maybe thought poorly of me that they were right. You know, like all these people I needed to show up and teach them, like, let me show you what I am capable of.
Yeah.
And that you almost could think of it like a chip on the shoulder, right?
Sure.
And that chip drives you. I mean, it's incredibly, I don't want to say motivating, but it definitely drives you forward. It keeps you up late. It helps you make that 37th cold call, even though the last five people told you to pound sand. It
Right.
helps you drive forward for sure. So I would say I was driven by fear very much so for years and years, unknowingly though. I wouldn't have told you that back then. I could tell you that now in hindsight. And it worked to grow an incredible business and to achieve all those external milestones. But the problem with fear as a fuel is there's a cost to it, right?
Right.
It's not sustainable in my experience. There are costs to using fear as well, but it can certainly get you somewhere from A to B in a quick, timely way.
I mean, they call it the grind for a reason. Like
Yeah.
at some
Yep.
point that grind goes wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
So then let's flip the script a little bit. As you're kind of identifying, hey, this led me to maybe certain definitions of success, but I'm really not feeling fulfilled. What then? What happened then on your journey?
Yeah, well, I think I had to pause because I was going through these motions of things that I thought I was supposed to do, like starting businesses because that's what I've done for all this time. And I never really stopped to like reassess what the hell, why am I doing this at all,
Mhm.
And again, like fear drives you and it can get you somewhere, but it's not always in alignment with what you're trying to achieve. I mean, we talk about fulfillment or happiness or whatever else. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot more in life than just making more money or just doing those things. And there's nothing wrong with that, making money. The thing I realized was getting very real and clear about what was driving my actions and reassessing if that's actually aligned with what I want in my life anymore. Does it align with my values anymore? Like things change. I started the business, was essentially single. Now I have two children and a wife and
Right.
all these
Yeah.
things. So I think it's important to stop and reassess those things and, figure out what really matters, And I think for me, I realized that I was doing these productive things because I felt like it's what I had to do. It felt wrong or lazy almost to take time off or to stop and like once you hit the milestone, you just punt it along until you get to the next milestone and you punt that along. And yeah, so I think the other side of the coin is like listening to yourself and actually stopping, reassessing what is important to you and then looking to see if your actions are aligned with that. And if they're not, then it's possibly worth looking at making some changes, which has helped me out a lot, to kind of work towards more of a purpose than to just do things because I think I'm supposed to or because society has said I should do those things.
Yeah. And I wonder, I mean, your perspective on this, I wonder how much of this is it's somewhat of a natural curve. I mean, you and I've had these conversations. Like, I'm a big believer that money is just a tool to live the life you want to live. So if you've kind of gotten yourself to the point where you have some resources at your disposal, it's a perfect time to like have that gut check. Like what's truly going to drive me? If building wealth is clearly a goal that many of us have to it has to be to live the life that we want to live. But if
Yep.
I'm asking people that it's not, XYZ things, it's I want freedom of time. Like I want to have those experiences with my kids. Like it's leading to those more tangible things that money can allow you the freedom to do,
Yep.
but maybe the grind was a really good thing to get you to that point. But I imagine there's a lot of people out there like you that maybe don't know when that tipping point is before it's a little too late, where
Yeah.
anxiety's setting in, fear's bringing in the bad stuff. The grind is really taking you to a not healthy place.
Yeah, that's well said. That's something I've actually been exploring as well. Is I'm like, it's almost like a privilege of the success to then be able to realize this isn't what I want to do anymore. Like you're saying, maybe that's a prerequisite of sorts where you have to go through that process. And if you're in a really bad place or you're trying to really like myself, I grew up poor. I never had money. Like, so to
Yeah.
get from where I was to where I needed to go, perhaps I needed to run on that fuel source. Perhaps that's what I needed to get to the next level. But to your point, I think when you hit burnout and all these other things, like you're a little late on reassessing
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Is there a process, and maybe this is where coaching comes into play? Is there a process that there's a more natural check-in to, how we doing here? Because we see it. It's not, I realize we're talking maybe entrepreneurs, people that have to put in a lot to get to success. When you're running a business and when you're responsible for other people, you're serving clients, you're doing all these things. It's probably no different than we talk to people that are in a job that they just don't want to be in anymore. Like it's not serving them. They may be making great money, but now they're using it in a different way. They're fearful of making a change that may serve them personally, emotionally. their family, their relationships, but fear stops them from doing something different because they're not really thinking about, well, what is going to serve me and what are the dominoes, good or bad, that I can maybe play out with somebody that could coach me through that.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, that's it. I think it's about gaining awareness, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's what we're talking about. It's just gaining awareness of why we do the things we do. You know, you talk about someone who's been in a career for so long and maybe they're not feeling it anymore. It's so easy to, sunk cost fallacy and all those things. You think, I can't make it. I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go like save trees now or something. Like, it doesn't have to be that, but you get the idea. It just sounds ridiculous. Dismiss it, move on. Like, I can't do that. And I think if we raise awareness around what's driving that thought process, once you start peeling back the onion, you might start realizing that it's not necessarily logical, or
Right. Yeah.
it's just what you think you should do. We talk about money should serve you to live the life you want to live, you had said, and so much of that is freedom, right? But then how
Freedom of
much money is
time, freedom.
enough?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Enough. Great concept.
Yeah.
It is so natural. Like fear, I mean, it's biology, right? We are programmed to
Yep.
feel that danger and now want to avoid that. I'm just wondering if we can go back to maybe some of your story. Then how did you really recognize that fear was maybe driving you to the wrong direction, or maybe even better, what helped you kind of recalibrate after that experience?
Yeah. So I think I realized it with like the fifth business when I'm like,
The fourth wasn't enough. Had to go to
yeah, yeah. And I think it was because I was hitting a point of like burnout feel over and over again. Like it's cyclical. Like I would do all these things, exit, come back to like not a whole lot to do. So then I'd ramp back up and exit. And it was just very extreme one way or the other. And I actually have a coach myself that I work with, and we were kind of talking through it. And it was, maybe I should dive into this more. So I had made it my point that that was my business, was to figure out what the hell is going on here, like psychologically. Why am I doing the things I'm doing? And that took me down a path, like I said, reading books, videos, coaching, therapy, spiritual framework, like just everything. I'm just like going in as a open-minded scientist of sorts. I want to explore why psychologically we do the things we do, or I'm doing the things I'm doing. And in that process, I started to uncover some of the reasons behind my actions weren't the surface level reasons I thought they were, you know? So the reasons I would have given you as to why I was doing what I was doing, it wasn't actually the real reason once I started peeling it back. And when I did peel it back and I identified the root cause, it was very freeing because you could immediately get visibility into like, whoa, okay. Like, what am I doing here? Like, okay, this is starting to make sense now because I uncovered the real why of what was driving me, And then I was able to reverse engineer that and start looking at my life to see, like, all right, if this is what's driving me and I know that's not true, what is important to me? And I literally went through the process of identifying my core values again. Not the ones that just look good on your wall, like everyone does.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
love family and friends. Like it's always the same. No, like what do I care about? Even if I was like, the thing that I value is helping snail farmers. Who gives a that shit? Like that's it, man. Snail farmers, it is. Like it doesn't matter. But what are your actual values? What are you trying to gain out of your life? Identify those things, write them down, validate them, and now look at your life and go, is this serving this vision? And if it's
Yeah.
not, then let's identify the areas that aren't aligned. So I went through that whole process, I guess, over probably course of 6 months to a year, maybe, and identified a lot of areas where I was not in alignment and worked towards starting to fix those things and move towards better alignment.
Sounds like great advice. Like a very intentional approach to exposing yourself to everything that you probably should have been exposing yourself to earlier, but at the same time, challenging your own kind of like negative thoughts. The
Yep.
intentionality, it reminds me a little bit. So maybe you've heard this too. Warren Buffett, if this is a financial podcast,
Yeah, of
we
course.
can talk about Buffett for a second. He gave this exercise. I don't know how long ago it was. I probably heard it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Not that we were going through the same thing, but post COVID, like I was really reevaluating me and my business too. And what he had said is a great exercise is write your obituary.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, what would you want it to say? And then be very intentional about trying to live that way. And
Yeah.
to your point, like I went through that process of like, okay, yeah, family, friends, like this is how I want to spend my time. But you get a lot more specific when you think, "Yeah, what would you want other people to say about you though?
Right.
And it really does shape maybe the way that you're approaching things.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because even if you work with individuals and you start working towards that, it's amazing how clear things become so quickly, you know? Something that seems so easy. It's just hard, I think, for a lot of us to do that ourselves because you have blind spots and, it's hard to do those things, but yeah, it's just amazing how much clarity you can gain with not a ton of effort, just actually asking the questions and trying to be real about it.
Yeah, but then you got to like give yourself a lot of credit for getting yourself to that spot where you were willing to not only explore that, but seek the help to do it. Because I'm wondering, for people that, let's go back to just running a business, being responsible for things, certainly the experience that you had, there are so many other people around you that rely on you, that look to you for leadership, that if you're showing some sort of weakness or your fear of something and you're expressing that or you're seeking help that you may, I don't know, self-image, like you're looking at that as some sort of weakness that you need to hide. And that's why
Yeah.
you're going to grind it out. So I'm wondering how many people are out there, hopefully listen to this podcast, that the first thing they need to do is get that little nudge to just talk about it, start exploring it.
Yeah, 100%. I think more than most would initially admit, I think, like you had mentioned about even post COVID, like there's so many business owners. I mean, my God, damn near all of them. Like at some point you think to yourself, is this what I want to keep
Yeah,
doing?
what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. At some point you think, what could I sell this for and how much, like at some point you think about those things. And I guess what we're saying is add to the mix is to maybe even an annual exercise, even if you're doing annual goals or whatever, like just do a vision statement for your life, do your end of life obituary, like do those exercises, run through them, document them, write it down, compare it to last year, see where you're at. And keep it objective. I think it's scary if you think like, oh, if I do that, I have to like make all these. Like we're just observing. We're being curious.
It's
That's all.
input.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. And then we have stuff to look at. That's all. But to your point, just be open to that and just start looking at areas in your life that maybe aren't quite in alignment. And you probably know in your gut, your intuition says what those things are.
Yeah, and I realize, again, we're maybe speaking from a perspective here of people that have maybe some abundance or they've kind of worked their way into that spot, but I think it's probably true for everybody. If you can recognize that there is this like end of life illusion. We talk about this with certain clients, right? It's very hard for them to do planning because it's hard for them to imagine them being different than they are today. Like
Yeah.
this, how I am today is how I'll always be. Things won't change. So I need to operate under this vacuum, this silo of information. It's a very foolish approach.
Yeah.
But we have to admit it is hard. It is hard to sometimes look beyond what we perceive right now. And that's also what we're kind of challenging people to do, right? To think about what's going to serve you, but how that may adapt over time. And that's why those check-ins are so important.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. And I think identifying the life you're living and whose life is that? Like someone once told me, like, anytime you think or say should, it's probably someone else's voice. So when you're like, well, I should probably do this thing, or, I should really do, ooh, who's saying that? Is that you or is that like Mr. Marblestone from the eighth grade? Like who's saying should and why? Like reframe that. Like even just being aware of that. Be aware of every time you think I should and then catch that and then evaluate why you're saying that. And you'd probably be amazed at how many things we do. We're just like, well, I should probably go do this, and it's like, why should I do that? Maybe I shouldn't. Like, at the end of the day, if it's not servicing my life the way I want to live it, then should I do it? Who came up with
Yeah,
that? I didn't agree to this game. Who wrote the rule book? I never got any input on this?
that's an awesome tidbit. So I'm curious in your, as you went through that process over a couple months of doing the research that you did, reading books, like what are there other little tips and tricks that you kind of gleaned from that? A favorite book, a favorite exercise? What really resonated with you as you were going through that?
Oh man, that's a good question. A few things. I'll give you a couple different answers. A couple different things. One, you said book. Have you ever read the book Die with Zero? Are you familiar with
No,
that book? Okay.
I've heard of it. It's
Yeah.
probably not on the shelf behind me that you can't
Yeah.
see.
I don't know that it aligns with your business model fully, but basically, the concept of this book is that you should die with no money.
Yeah.
That's it. And if
If
you
you bounce
don't,
your, we call that success. If you
yeah,
bounce,
right. If
you
you died
bounce your
with
last check,
$0,
you did it right. Yep.
exactly. Yep. Like he would argue, don't wait until you die to give inheritance. Do it before you die. Like start doing it so you can
Sure.
enjoy those things. And if you die with an extra X dollars, and that is a representation of the time you wasted in your life not doing some sort of experience. Because otherwise, you traded your time for that resource and you don't have it anymore, you know? So I thought that was an interesting perspective, which really helped me. It helps frame like, why are you doing it? Why are you accumulating more? Why are you doing whatever if it's not in service of your life? And Die with Zero, I think, was a cool book for that. But I think probably the single most impactful thing I did was I started meditating, which is really freaking hard. I don't know if you meditate at all, if you ever done that kind of stuff or not, but
I
man, it's
like
tough.
I like to hike, that's my quiet space, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it speaks to probably just the person that you are too. You're super productive, you're super thoughtful. It's hard to turn all of that off.
Yeah. And that's
I bet you're like me, you don't sit still well.
no, I do not. Yeah, and that's I think exactly why that was so powerful. And I'm a very all or nothing kind of person, which I'm trying to work on as well. So like when I start thinking about I should meditate, I'm like, all right, I do an hour a day, maybe an hour twice a day, 7 days a week. We go to the temple, like this monk temple, once a month. Like it's way extreme. Like just do like a minute, 1 minute every morning or something. But I bring that up because some of the most powerful insights in my life have come from when it's quiet.
Yeah.
When I stop the noise, I stop thinking, I stop producing, and I just look inward and try to figure out what's actually true. If that makes sense. And so many of those answers that I was looking for with like books and videos and
Yeah.
this and that, so many of it was answered just by looking in. I'm looking out there. I'm looking for external validation. I'm looking for make more money or to make businesses. I'm looking for these books and do this. And all I needed to do is shh
Yeah.
and just listen to yourself. A lot of very valuable insight lives right within you if you're willing to listen to it and remove the distractions long enough to do so.
So I imagine I mean, it's great to hear that you can do that in 1 minute. I
Yeah.
imagine I
Yeah.
imagine the environment matters though.
Yeah. So one of my favorite meditation spots is in our guest bedroom closet because I'm not very good at it. So I can't do it like in loud kids running around. So I'm just like, hey, honey, I'll be back. I'm going to the closet. And I like go lock myself in the closet and just sit there for a couple minutes trying to clear my mind. And yeah, it's a challenge. But again, try not to chase perfection and just try to do anything. And yeah, I found that to become easier with time, but it's still a challenge to make space for it.
Sure.
So find a closet and get quiet.
So as we maybe, try to summarize some of this, maybe give me your one or two things that you would want everyone to kind of take away from this. And then we should certainly wrap up with letting people know how they can find you if they want to follow up on this.
Yeah. I think one or two things. So I would say I would challenge everyone, regardless of your situation. Maybe you own a business, maybe you don't, maybe you're working it doesn't matter. I challenge you to reevaluate today what matters to you in life. Let's get straight on that. What's
Mm.
your core values? What do you want your life to look like? And write it down. Make it real. And it's not about perfection. Again, just write it down. We're just curious. I think if you did just that, you it would make a lot of difference for a lot of people. And kind of hand in hand with that is increasing awareness then. So, all right, here's the life I want to live. I'm going to go live my life now, and I'm going to try to tune up my awareness for opportunities where maybe it's not in alignment. Or maybe things when I'm starting to feel upset, I'm just going to be aware of like, why is that happening instead of just allowing the emotion to take over my body. And then with that awareness and with your newfound vision, you can start to craft a path forward with intention, where instead of just doing things because you should do them or because it's what you were taught, you're doing them in a service of the life that you want to live. And as long as you're making intentional decisions, I think that'll take you to a much better place than a lot of people are in, who are kind of on autopilot, doing the things they should do because that's what they were told they should do. You know?
I love it. And it's such a good prerequisite to the work that we try to do here. Because to kind of wrap up on my side, we want to help people live that life, but we can't craft what that is to them, right? We can ask questions like, I want to hear, what are you trying to accomplish? But I don't want that to be retirement at 65, because what does that mean? Like, what are we
Right.
retiring to?
Yep.
Right? I don't want people making all this money and then dying unhappy, right? So the work that you're
Yeah.
trying to do and help people kind of identify those things, it's very helpful to then make the money work for it. So I appreciate you sharing all that. How can people find you, Matt? What's the best way to find you if they want to continue a conversation like this?
Yeah, so they can go, I have a website called illumishift.com. So that's ILLUMI shift.com. And that's my coaching brand where you can schedule a free discovery call and just to connect and chat. It's what that's for. And then LinkedIn is really where I spend a lot of my time otherwise. So just my name, Matthew Strunk on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Those are probably the two best places to find me as of now.
Yeah, and if you don't get back to them right away, you're probably in the closet meditating. Right?
Exactly. Yep. Give me about 60 to 90 seconds. I'll be back.
Matt, this was awesome. I really appreciate you being generous with your time. It's clearly a topic that we were both passionate about, so I'm glad you were willing to share some of those nuggets, and really comes down to just hoping people get that nudge to reach out if they're just not feeling it.
Yeah,
whether it's
definitely.
faith-based or not.
Yep. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for the time. Always a pleasure.
You got it. Hey everyone, Adam and I really appreciate you tuning in. Please note that the opinions we voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be most appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, your accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to making any decisions or investing. Thanks for listening.